All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Alaysha, the Warrior Queen. We are on episode 12 of our Warrior Women Thriving Live podcast talk show. And today in Courageous Conversations, we have our featured guest. I'm honored to have my friend, my fellow coach and sister, Erica L. Harris. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. It's good to see you. And thank you. I'm honored to be able to be a part of your show. I've been listening and watching, and to be included with such great women and other speakers is an honor. Thanks for having me, Alaysha.
Yes, thank you so much, sister. I'm so happy to have you as well. You talk about being a chief purpose coach, and of course we're all about creating a purposeful and meaningful life. So I can't wait to dig in and find out, let the audience know, what does that even mean and how do you come about to be a purpose coach? So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, where are you from? Where are you hailing from, Queen?
Yeah, so I am living and have been for over 20 years now in Chicago, Illinois, the Windy City. They say second city, Alaysha, but I'm not buying it. Like, I think Chicago is one of the best cities in the world, let alone in the country. But I would be remiss if I did not tell you that I was born and raised in Flint, Michigan, and I always believe that that's part of my story. Solid years people, real people, authentic people, strong, persistent folks. My family is still there. And so I'm very proud to be forever a Flintstone for life. But certainly when you pay taxes for over 20 some years in a place, you have to say you're from that location.
Exactly. I hear you. Well, welcome all the way from Chicago. And again, I've never been to either one. So
oh, really? Okay, come through. Don't come to Chicago anytime before, I would say between like kind of now and maybe end of May. I hate to say it. It can be cold all the way through. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. I'll definitely look you up when I'm coming out your way.
We do. We like to eat. We like to party. It would be my honor and my pleasure to have you here.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that one day, sister. So we kind of alluded to what your profession is. Let's go into it. Like, what is a chief purpose coach?
Yes.
What
do I do? So if you don't mind, I'd love to be able to answer the question of what do I do? It's usually like I'm a purpose and career coach.
Okay.
And I usually tell my clients, it's like that first question that you get in any interview. Tell me, a little bit about yourself, right? That's kind of the essence. But I like to lead by saying not just what it is that I do as a chief purpose and career coach, but to say who I am. And who I am is what I call a purpose doula. If you know anything about giving birth and that whole process, for us, those of us who are mothers, the doula is the person that is responsible for helping the mother deliver that beautiful baby that is within her. So the doula didn't bring the baby, right? It's not their responsibility, of course, to plant the seed, but the seed comes through the mother and she helps the mother to deliver. So I think of myself as a purpose doula, someone who is here. I didn't plant the seed of purpose in anyone. Every single person I believe in the world has a seed of purpose within. And so I consider myself as the person who helps to create the kind of environment, the safe space, the conditions that allow people to find their purpose, to find that seed that's within, and then to give birth to it and bring it to life, discover it, nurture it, water it, watch it grow. I like to think that in that safe space of coaching, we are able to do that. And there's no greater joy than watching people find that and being able to help them deliver it. So purpose doula is another image for purpose coach. And I help people align who they are, who they were created to be, who are they becoming, with what they do. Because I think it's essential that if you're going to spend as many hours as we do in career and in work or in building a business, it should be aligned with the essence of who you are. So it's purpose and career, so that who you are and what you do are aligned and in sync.
Yes. Oh, wow. Sister, I love that so much. It's definitely in alignment with our Warriors Thriving global movement. And I usually call myself the midwife.
Okay, see, look at that. Right. We didn't even
Exactly.
know that when we got here, right? So
Oh
that's
yeah,
beautiful.
and it's interesting that you said that with the doula, because I'm like, I'm the midwife as well, bringing forth, right, what God has placed in them, and that's that seed, and it's already there, right? It's you,
Absolutely.
like you said, and I love that your website says purposeful seed. So
Mhm.
when you talk about the seed, it has to be nurtured, and it has to be able to come to harvest. And we are those folks that help folks bring their gift to harvest. So I love that.
Yeah, I
It's so
love the
much in
synergy
alignment.
there. That's
Yes, it's
awesome.
so
That's
much.
awesome.
Listen, sister, when we first talked and when we met, I already knew we had so much in common and an alignment with what we're doing. So
Right.
it's no coincidence. God is so good to
Yes, yes, God is.
bring
And
us
I
together.
love, I don't think there are any coincidences that
That's
things
right.
are, not even just destined, but that God ordained certain people and certain moments for
Yeah,
those things to align and connect. So it's an honor. It really is a blessing to be
me
here.
too. Me too.
Doula and the midwife. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yes. So why are you here today? Why did you accept my invitation?
Well, I think first of all, you just have such an incredible warm energy. And I think that that is so important. Like you align yourself with people who are going to help you shine and that you can help shine. And so it was
Yes.
just, again, my honor to be able to be in that space. And I also think that, this idea of like the thriving warrior, somewhere I think in my kind of being and my purpose is the spirit of a warrior. And
Yes.
and the warrior, not just that is always kind of just fighting, but that is determined to be the best, right? To be her best, to be what God has destined me to be. And so despite whatever obstacles, there was something about being able to say we're going to thrive through it, not just survive. And I know that you make a real distinction between that as well. And so
Yes.
that made me say this is a safe space for me to be able to tell a little bit about my personal story, personal journey, and help to inspire somebody else
Yes.
who might need that kind of inspiration or path. We're going through a lot of things right now in society. And so anyone who gives me a good word around, you can do it, you can make it, believe, all of those
Yes.
things, it motivates me. And I'm honored if I have an opportunity to do that for someone else.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Erica. I love how eloquent you are when you speak and when you share. It's so authentic and from your heart. And I always felt that from the moment even we had our first conversation, even when we were texting, like, in the chats rather.
Right.
And it was like, I just want to speak to her.
Right. Who's this person? This is really because you can't tell the difference. I tell my clients all the time, like a text seems like it's just something writing, but like the way that you do it comes through and the way that people will read it can come through. So
It
there
does.
was a connection there and energy there that I think I really resonated with. And I'm glad that we are able to bring all of that to this moment.
Yes, yes. So let's dig in. Let's dig in, sister, because I'm so like eager to just, talk to you and open up and do a deeper dive to find out a little bit about who you were, right? Let's talk about the past, Erica, who you were before you became Chief Purpose Coach.
Who I was. So for sure, I am Alaysha, a teacher at heart. So I've always been a teacher. That has been a thing. I like to help people find their golden thread. What's the thing that you always have done that not because you're getting paid, not because somebody's even asking you, but because it's just the natural thing. And I think, being a teacher has something that I did in my profession when I started my career, but have gone in every single aspect of my life. Teaching has been something that's been really important to me.
Yeah.
Right before I decided to launch a business, and let me say that was not in the cards when that happened. I was working for an amazing organization that builds and develops leaders, people of color, to work with young people and help to improve the quality of their lives.
Nice.
And in that capacity, I just really love developing like raw talent, like talent that they're going to be somebody and they're right at that trajectory of their career, that catch them, help them find the deep thing that's going to give them roots, help them understand who they are a little bit better, and then they're going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
At a place where that organization, which was in its infancy, I helped develop it with a really good friend of mine It was her idea, and she asked me to be her number two. But as we grew, which was amazing, we started getting ready to expand. And as that happened and the organization was moving in a particular way, she came to me and said, hey, I think the leadership, not necessarily the people, but the structure needs to change as we change. And when she came to me with like, this is what I think that looks like, I didn't see myself.
Wow.
Like, wow, like I'm looking at this and I love this organization and the work that we're doing is powerful, but I didn't see me. And so I went from there, and at nearly 40, I mean, at the time I was turning 40, and I was like, something in my spirit is saying step down. And so I did that. But in stepping down, I thought, well, God is just going to open up another door. Here comes the door, I will walk through it. And when that happened, what I did not expect, because sometimes you don't know what God has in store. I did not expect that my college educated, all of the degrees or whatever, preparing other people for work, that I would go out of work for 8 months.
Wow.
And so that was probably one of the most difficult challenges, not the most, but one of them, to be in a place where you're qualified, but you're not quite sure what God is qualifying you for.
Yes.
And so somewhere in that process, I was meeting with people, some of them, and most of them informational interviews, because I'm like, I got to find some work and figure out the right role. But what I knew in that process is I wasn't just looking for what I would say, I wasn't just looking for a job. You can get a job, you can make some money, but I was looking for something more meaningful.
That's right.
It wasn't coming to me, right?
Yeah.
And so in that process, I remember saying, like, God, what is it? All these doors keep closing. I'm getting the final interviews. I'm not getting the job. But I gave myself permission to say, maybe it looks different than what I'm looking at, because what I see doesn't look like, it's the right choice. And I had one informational interview with someone who I consider to be a mentee of mine. And almost like, it was like, how Oprah says, the aha moment. I'm meeting with her, and I end up talking to her about her career goals. Like, I'm there trying to get some information. And by the end, I'm coaching her. And she says, Erica, people will pay you for this kind of insight. Wisdom. And it was a light bulb for me. It really took me to a place where it's like, maybe God is telling me to do something with that. The thing that I was doing with people and have always been doing, whether they were students in my classroom or my family, or my best friends, like whoever it was, I was always giving that kind of wisdom or space to be, I want you to be great. How can you be great? Right. Yeah. So in that process, I realized that this idea of coaching, which I had a coach at that time, was something that I was really interested in. So that moved me into that direction. That's how I became Chief Purpose Coach, and really took the leap into entrepreneurship, and went down that path.
And when was that? What year was that?
So that would have been in about 2017. Okay. Is when I launched that in 2017. And then what I realized very early on, and this as an entrepreneur, it is a busy grind, right? It is constant, like you're doing everything. You're an entrepreneur, you're a solopreneur, because in many ways you don't have the capacity or capital. And so in my process of growing, what I realized is I was super busy doing, having some success, but just really burned out.
Yeah.
And mentally, emotionally exhausted, but still doing. I was a functional, I was in functional exhaustion, right?
Yeah, I get it.
I sadly, I think too many of us get that, because we drive ourselves to the place where we're so tired, and it was starting to have an impact on my body. Yeah. I didn't mention, I have 3 children. I'm married now 18 years. I have a loud dog. And the grind was real. It was serious. And I would find myself saying, I'm so tired, but I have to keep doing. Because so many of us think that if I'm not doing something, I'm not doing something.
Yes.
If you know what I mean, right? And so in the doing, I was really physically exhausted, mentally exhausted. And then in 2019, in that stage, I felt something in my chest. And I remember saying, that's kind of weird. And sometimes I would feel it would be there, sometimes it wouldn't. That's how small it kind of was. It was probably moving.
Right. Okay.
I didn't realize what that was. And it didn't occur to me that it could be anything. And I ignored it because I'm doing, and I'm not focused on me. And I'm not focused on my health and my wellness. And I'm ignoring the fatigue and say, well, shoot, I'm moving all the time. Of course I'm tired.
Yeah.
So that was in August. I officially realized that it was something serious when I felt in that same place. And that thing that I felt there, it was hard as a rock. I mean,
Wow.
it really felt like not only was it there, like it wasn't moving at that time. Now it's like, no, there's something really here. And I remember saying to my husband, like, can you, like, what is this? And he was starting, I could see in his face, he was shook, like, what is that? That's scary.
Yeah.
And between how it felt, my fatigue and those kinds of things and those clues, but also I had a friend, and I just have to mention her name. Her name was Felicia. She was going through breast cancer at the time. And on an October day during breast cancer awareness, I saw an article about her from University of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, hopefully, and she was on the front page of the Sun-Times, which is the second newspaper here in Chicago. And I was excited, and I bought it home. But as I read it, I read her story. I read how she was living through cancer, not just surviving it, but she was really making it through. And she talked about how she detected the tumor that was inside of her. And I was like, this sounds strangely familiar.
Wow.
And so I remember saying that day, I need to go get a mammogram. And that fast forward to December 2019, when I finally got the results of that and got a call that said, I'm sorry to tell you, Ms. Harris, the tumor that we've been testing did come back as cancer, as breast cancer. And not only was it breast cancer, but after lots of tests, they were able to decipher that it was stage 3.
Okay.
And thought that maybe, because there were some other things coming up the test, that it could be stage 4. And anybody knows anything about cancer, there's an elevation, right? There's an advancement as the tumor spreads through your body.
Yeah.
It goes from stage 1 in small microbes to, stage 2, 3, and 4 being, it is spreading in multiple places in your body. Okay. And I found out mine was stage 3. And so that meant chemo, that meant surgery, that meant radiation.
Wow.
And so the person that I was before was exhausted. And I'm saying this specifically for any woman or even man who is asking themselves, what's going on with me? If you are tired, if you are, unable to sleep well, right? If there are physical things that your body is telling you, if you feel something, and might I just say and encourage you, and I'm looking right into the camera now to say to somebody, go get the information.
Yes.
And in retrospect, Alaysha, I think what I realized is I didn't want to know that there was something wrong with me. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? Like it's easier to act like it's not something until you find out that it's something, and now you have to deal with it real face to face. But I'll tell you that had I waited, because I had an aggressive, it was HER2 positive, which is an aggressive form of cancer. Okay. That space between August and October may have been the difference between stage 1 and stage 3.
Wow.
So I have to reflect on that and say to people who may be saying there might be something wrong, but I'm not sure, the time that you wait to find out could mean the difference between literally life, death, or seriousness of your condition. And so I'm so glad that I did. I'm so grateful to God for Felicia's story, because it saved me. It stopped me. And I'm very grateful. Unfortunately, my dear sister died the February after I had been in remission. She passed away when it came back the second time. Wow. And she didn't make it, but I was able to thank her parents. Yes. Because they raised a daughter who was able to stand in her truth. Yes. And share her story. And because she did that, I was able to do that. And I was able to live through it. I didn't just make it, and we'll talk about that story. But I'm really grateful to Felicia. Yeah. And
I'm glad you said that, Erica, because this podcast talk show is about courageous conversations. And you talked about your friend speaking her truth, right? Yeah. And our normal show talks about experiences of abuse or trauma or toxic relationships, but this is trauma. This is a
Right.
traumatic experience, learning that you have a diagnosis of a stage 3 type cancer. You know,
Right.
it's scary.
Right.
But I want to just go back to your friend, having the courage
Yeah.
to be vulnerable, to be transparent, to speak her truth, because it gave you hope, and I'm sure so many other people. And that's why we're here today on the podcast talking about these stories, right? And the triumph over all of the trials and tribulation, because it gives, even if it's one person,
That's right.
hope. It
Right.
can literally save a life. And like you said, the difference between the time of now and yesterday can make a huge difference to save your life. So Erica, I just want you to kind of come back to that just a little bit and tell folks, where should they go or what should they do? Like, I really want you to give some clarity on that, because if somebody like you was in denial for a minute, right? And we all would be, I'm sure. I have not had this experience, but I'm sure if I did, I would be in denial in the beginning, but how critical it is to not waste the time. But what should they do? What can they do?
Yeah, and I want to speak to that. It's such a really good question. I appreciate you giving me the space to even offer. I think that's part of what freezes us, right? Is that we don't always have that. And first of all, we're scared, right? We're
Yes.
dealing with the fear of the what if.
Yes.
But then we're also and I dealt with this for a while too. It's like, I don't even know where to go. Like, what do I do? Who do I talk to?
Yeah.
And so what Felicia gave me was some instructions without telling me directly. It was really literally through this article that I saw her journey.
Okay.
That I saw that when she found her tumor, when she found something unusual, she went to her doctor. She called first her regular doctor, right? If you don't have one, you can still find one. And I know in Illinois, and I'm sure all over the country, they have free services that you can go and actually access. And I actually, in the first round, that's what I did, because I wanted to be seen so quickly. I actually went and I visited a place that would see women for free and just would do, an exam. And that was the catalyst for me then finally going to get a mammogram and all of those things. But the first thing is go see a professional. Maybe talk to people in your circle who maybe have dealt with this or have information, because it's something about the personal story of somebody that that can walk you through, well, have you done this? And now that's the role that I play right now in my friend circle. I have several women in my friend circle, unfortunately, African-American women in particular, breast cancer, we usually find out later in the process. And then we usually are more inclined to, unfortunately, die from it because we don't get help early enough.
Yes.
And so it is so important. There will be somebody in your circle who's been through this. Find them, talk to them, ask them. And I play that role now, and I'll ask my girls, and did you get did you have your mammogram this year?
Yes.
What you need to do. And they now send me texts and be like, girl, I got my girls checked, because it needs to be normalized that we do that work. But get the information, read. There's so much information, Alaysha, online. I can give all kinds of websites and resources. Perhaps I can do that as a follow-up to this for anyone who is interested. The information is out there, but the first thing probably that's going to get you over the fear is to talk to somebody close, or to talk to a medical practitioner who can say, this is what you need to do, or this is, it might not be anything, but better to know that it is or isn't than to kind of sit in the fear and allow fear. I think that is a trick of the enemy, to sit in that fear and to stand in the what if. God is what is, right? Like I believe that God is what is, not what if. And so if you stand in that, then I believe that will give you the courage to be able to do whatever it is that you need to do.
No, that was perfect. And I think that gives people a great starting place in terms of, just preventive, right? Not, being proactive and preventative kind of wellness checks, as opposed to reacting or, just waiting until, right? So I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because it's important that I know October is, so here's another thing that we share in terms of October. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but it's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So especially since this conversation that we're having is predominantly for women, but men also watch our show. So it's for both, right? Both needs to be checked and make sure that we're doing some wellness and some self-care. So thank you for sharing that. So let's go into transformation a little bit, right? Because you talked about that journey and about transformation. Let's go straight to it. Like, once you got the diagnosis, you had your friend's story, and you started to do something about it. As you was going through that journey, what was it like?
Yeah, it's, I thought before I saw Felicia's story, and I have so many other women who did share their stories, whether publicly on social media or in private, walk me through their journeys. What I learned from them is there's this narrative that when you hear your name associated with the C word, with cancer or with any kind of trauma, that there's not a way out.
Yes.
Right. And so you can go into it with a mindset, with a limiting mindset that makes you think like, this is it. This is the end. This is the chapter.
Yeah.
Whether conscious or unconsciously, you can be telling yourself this is the end of the book.
Yeah.
But I was able to see through the people who I talked through is this is a page. This is the chapter in the book, but this isn't the end of the book. And so my mindset was not around, this is it. And I saw that even in Felicia, who ultimately, succumbed to her illness, she did not live in a way that would make you think that that's what she thought was going to happen. She lived, like vibrantly lived. She went to her cousin's wedding the year that she had chemo and was losing her hair, right? And when I had it, I was actually trying to get to my cousin's wedding because COVID, that ended up not happening. But it was a idea that I can live through this. And I remember the day of the diagnosis, I went to the Lakeshore Drive, which is like where the water is in Chicago. And I remember having a tearful moment. I had just heard what was going on and all of the things I was going to have to do and the weight of that. And I went by myself. I stood by the water, and it was like God was standing with me. And it was what I call my Peter walk on water moment. And what I heard in my spirit very clearly was, are you going to trust me?
Yes.
Wow. I do not make mistakes. And I created you, so I know what you are capable of, and I know, and you know me. So trust me. There was this real sense of peace and trust.
Wow.
And on standing on that water, I felt myself, I have a picture of myself sitting next to it. I felt myself saying, this is going to be my walk on water moment.
I love that.
I'm going to be better on the other side of this.
Yeah.
So that was the mindset. When I told my children, I didn't tell them like, it wasn't a fatal story. It was, mommy has to go through this. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. You're going to see mama lose her hair, all of the things. But I did never introduce the idea that this was it. Even when they asked, mommy, are you going to die? Right? Because that's a very real thing for, children.
Yeah.
But no, mommy's not going to. I may suffer. I may struggle. This isn't the end of my book. So the mindset, I think, is, I say that all I have to say, the transformation for me happened before anything happened.
So it was here. It all started in the mind.
Here, be renewed, right? It's the renewing of your mind, your limiting belief that tells you, but everything that I see about cancer says death. That's not true. That's a lie.
Amen.
And once I received that in my spirit, and that was a daily walk, people sent me journals and books and, lots of, messages from my favorite ministers and pastors and bishops and women of God. And in that process, I got my faith was renewed. Right. And so the process was cyclical. Chemo was this process of, go to chemo. And then for the first week, I was just out. Sure. Like, I'm tired, I can't eat, I can't up. And then the second week got better. By the third week, I felt really like myself. I didn't have hair, but I felt like Erica, and then I had to do it again. So that cycle, but even the cycle teaches you trust. Keep working the process, keep trusting. And so going through that, through surgery, through radiation, that's just the cycle that I stayed on. I remember before getting the diagnosis, telling a friend, I am a believer and believers believe.
Ooh.
That was before I
simple as that. Simple as that.
Listen, and I don't even know where that wasn't something that I said all the time. I just knew that was in my spirit.
Yes.
And then 2 hours later, I got the call.
Mm.
You cannot say something like that if and then when it's time to believe, you don't test yourself. And God needs to test you.
Yes.
You said you were a believer, Erica. You stood up by this water. You said you were going to trust me. So as you are going through and feeling horrible and watching your skin fall off through radiation or experiencing the pain, do you still believe? It's a Job moment, right? It's that story that you have to test your faith. Your faith has to be tested. And so what I learned, one, God is real.
Yes.
Two,
Amen.
I'm stronger than I think I am.
Yes.
I'm stronger than I even know.
Love that.
And 3, it starts up here. It
yes.
really starts with your mind.
It does. And it reminds me of the Bible scripture where it says, as a man thinketh, so shall he is, right? So whatever you believe, whatever you think, that's what it is.
That's right.
So if you think in negative thoughts, disempowering thoughts, limiting thoughts, self-doubt, then that's true. But if you think in abundance and prosperity and you think, positive, right, then that's also true. And I love how you said that it starts in the mind. It starts with your faith. And now some people don't have this kind of, unwavering faith like that. You and I do, because Lord knows, right? That's what got me through my unwavering faith and belief that God was going to bring me through, even though I could not see the top of the staircase. Like I always talk about Dr. King's quote about having that faith, blind faith, right? Taking the first step without seeing the whole entire staircase. So that was my moment too, like that pivotal moment where I realized everything that was happening was right up in here in my mind, in my head. And if I didn't believe something, guess what? Wasn't happening. The moment I turned to faith, that's what gave me power. And that's what I'm hearing in your story. And that's why I love what you're saying, because again, it's just so in alignment. It's a different story with me, other women, but we're all the same. That's why, this thread of love, this thread of faith, this thread of just believing in God, especially if when you're a woman of God, that's your power. That is your power, because for me, that was the only thing that ignited me at the time. Because I said, if I didn't have that, it just would have been total darkness for me, right? I thank God that, he gave you that fire under your feet to be able to say, you know what, this is not the final end of this book. This is just one chapter. It's not the end story. I love how you put that into language, because I think many people that's watching this, whether it's live or the replay, they're going to be able to understand that analogy, right? This is just a chapter. Whatever you went through, whatever happened to you, whatever you were diagnosed with, it doesn't matter. That is not defining who you are or who you are to become, but only if you believe that.
Right.
Only if you believe it. And so I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's move on. Because, I want to, I thank God for your transformation, sister. I thank God that he brought you through. And so let's go to present day. What is it like today? Like, obviously your experience fueled, right, where you are today. So how did that happen? And what is it? What message are you bringing to the world today?
Yeah, it's a good thing to think about, right? Because no matter the trial or tribulation, I love that we have different survivor stories, or the issue was different, but the journey is very similar. And I think that no matter what it is that people are going through, for me, it was like, how is this going to make me better?
Yes.
Right. And again, that is a mindset, but it's almost like, if it's not going to make me better, what is it for? Right. And I think the world has gone through such an amazing, difficult challenge and transformation in the last few years. Right.
Yes.
And the only thing that we can count on for sure is change. Change is going to happen.
Yes, it
Right.
is.
We know change is going to come. We know challenges are going to come. The question is, how do you take that challenge, not just as a challenge, but as an opportunity, or as my girlfriend calls it, the obstacle to opportunity?
Yes.
Right? Is how do you use that as a stepping stone to where it is that you want to go,
Yeah.
and what the impact that you want to have, the purpose that you have inside? How do you allow that to become, more of who you are, as opposed to take you out?
Yes.
And so I think, where I am now is realizing that journey, along with the unemployment journey of 8 months, all of those things help me to be able to relate to people who I talk to. I believe God sends me clients, frankly, people who need to hear, not just, not hear, but just understand that there is a pathway forward.
That's right.
Right. Because I'm not, as a coach, I'm not here to just tell you all my stories and say you can do it too, but it is to create a pathway for you.
That's
To
right.
ask some essential questions, to think about certain things, and to create a safe space so that you can find your pathway forward, whatever it is for you. And I think I needed to experience being unemployed for 8 months. I think I need to experience, one time I was in the hospital for, something almost, it took me out again in 2015. And now here I am in 2020 going through the same thing. But it was so that I could share with people there is a pathway forward.
Yeah.
And I am inspired by people who recognize that there is a pathway forward and that it can make us better. And frankly, given the last couple of years, pandemic and all, economic crisis, if we can't see how it's going to make us better, we are missing the point.
Yes. And our mentor, we have a shared mentor. One of them is Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. They're a duo.
Yeah.
If you guys know who they are, they're big time in this, whole personal development game. Right. And one of the things that he talks about, the two of them, is about learning from your failure. And it's not meant to hurt you. It's meant to, like you said, take a look and see, what did you learn from that? Right. And there should be a lesson in the failures, and it's part of what they called, quote unquote, research, right? So I was like, that's a great way to put it, because what happens, sister, when something happens like that, we take it on as our own identity that something's wrong with us. We're not worth it. We're not enough. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. And it doesn't have anything to do with that. Things come up, whether it's something that we intentionally done or tried, and things come up that you have no control over, like your health, right? Not necessarily you didn't have control over that. And it's like, but your body might have been telling you, right? I'm tired. And what happens is, anytime you have anything stored in your body, and stress is the number one factor that kills us, right? Because you don't see it, but it's in the body, and it causes that dis-ease. And that's what you were talking about. You felt it in your body. And finally, your body said, enough is enough. And, no.
And that wasn't the first time. Here's the thing, that like, people, if you follow the breadcrumbs, my body is always telling me, I internalize the stress and the weight and, all of those different things. And I don't mean like the physical weight, but like the weights of the world that sit on your shoulders.
Mentally and emotionally.
Absolutely. Right. But I love how you just, there is a dis-ease, but here's the thing that people have to remember: you're only going to grow through discomfort.
That's right.
You are not going to grow into who you are really meant to be by just being even keel and never go through anything.
Right.
Like, I like to use the analogy of wearing those jeans that you love so much. I think Tabitha Brown used this the other day, and she was like, I got these jeans and I had so much fun in those jeans. Now I try to put them on and I can't get my thigh in them, right? So now I got to get another pair of jeans, right?
Yeah.
But the lesson in that is that you grow when you're uncomfortable.
Right.
And so you have to almost assume or take on the mindset that the discomfort ultimately will lead to joy, growth, happiness. It'll lead to a better me if I allow it to, because I do have to give myself permission to allow the challenge to help me conquer,
Yeah.
and the challenge to allow me to grow. And I also love how you said that, you know, that your challenge does not define who you are.
That's right.
Right? It's just something that happened to you.
That's
But
right.
it doesn't define who you are. So whether it was a domestic violence issue or your cancer or a bad relationship, it could be anything that you're going through. It does not define you. The only one that can define you, you and God define, right? God's already defined it. That's already been defined. You have to accept and walk into who you are. And what happens to you does not have to define that at all.
That's right. I love that. I definitely love that. Listen, what is the compelling future for you? Because I already see you are just on fire, and you are certainly a warrior woman. You know, I'm so glad that you're a part of our movement here. But what does the compelling future look like for you? You know, what are you gonna hope to solve, or, you know, your mission, your long-term vision, I should say.
The long-term vision.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with, like, the health journey is something I'm going to start with myself, because I think it all starts from you, right? I am still working on this idea of, you know, the pause, the slow down, the pay attention to your body. Just because you went through something doesn't mean that you don't still have to work on it. So that is an ongoing challenge for me. Again, still the mom, still the entrepreneur, still the wife, still the dog mom, like all those things, but realizing that I need to pull back sometimes and really focus on me. So I think that's the personal vision, and then allow that to kind of feed all of the other things that I want to do. As it relates to kind of larger impact in the world, I would like to make it more of a norm, that we start to talk about the importance of who we are and let that lead where we want to go in our lives, right? And I think that work comes out in the work that I do with my clients. Like, that's why I say I'm a purpose and career, because it's not people come to me wanting to interview for a job. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Tell me a little bit of who you are. And they give me a long list of all the things they've done. And I'll stop them and say, that is awesome, but who are you? And we can't answer that question. It should be something that we come to a little bit more, not simple, because it's not a simple question, but more naturally, that we're thinking more about who is the essence, the core of who I am, so that that can lead what it is that I decide to do. So I'd like to see that become more of a norm and a narrative that we use.
Can you give an example of what that looks like? Because I know that comes up for a lot of people, and it would be great if you can share an example of someone sharing who they are versus what they do, because you made a very valid point there.
Right. So, and I'll use a generic example, because I don't want to call anybody in particular out on my roster of clients, or I can use myself even. Yeah. But when let's say, for example, you go to a networking event, right? And I'll just use that, you know, when I was going to a networking events before I wasn't working. And before that 8 months, I would introduce myself by saying, my name is, and I'm the vice president of programs for blah, 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 blah. And this is what I do. My program does this, and my organization. This is all the laundry list of things that we all have on our resume. And it's a bullet point list of achievements and accolades, and all of that is great. I'm not suggesting that you don't need to understand those things about you. Difference between that and how I answer it now is how I answered you at the very beginning, which is, I can give you all my titles, but let me tell you what it is that I came to do in the earth. And what I came to do in the world, right, is to help people find their purpose, to help them be inspired to find something that they love, that they're passionate about. And now, and giving you an image like the purpose doula. So now you have an image of, like, oh, she gives birth to purpose. That's who she is. But what she does is she's a coach. Right? So, but what I do is, when I say I give birth to purpose, I do that with my children. I do that when I'm in my church. I do that when I'm at work. I do that in my service, when I work in my children's school. It doesn't matter where I am. I'm still doing the thing because it's who I am.
Wow.
So I hope that helps people to understand the difference there. People can read your resume and see your accolades and achievements, but what they're going to remember is your story.
That's
What they're
right.
going to remember is, what it is that makes you different. And I'd like to think that that has more to do with like the who you are and your purpose than it does with all of the list of achievements that we've done.
I love that. Very simple, very plain and clear. I think the audience got it.
Good, good. I'm glad. And I'd like to start that conversation just to finish that question about vision with young people.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, I wonder if I could ask you a question. When you think about, let anybody in school ever ask you, Alaysha, who are you?
I'm sure they have.
Okay, I'm glad that you said that. Most people that I talk to, they have never even been asked that question, except for maybe in kindergarten, somebody said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right.
Yeah.
But that question of like, but who are you? What do you love? What's your passion? What are your gifts? What are your talents?
And what's interesting
Yes.
that you asked me that, I always had trouble personally defining who I was, right? In the past, until I really started doing this self-work. I honestly, somebody asked me that, I couldn't answer it before. And I'm still defining who I am now today, because I'm creating, right, the vision in a future that I want to create for myself. I'm not waiting for somebody to tell me about it. I'm creating this idea, this utopia of this warrior women thriving, 1 million strong, right?
Yes.
It's like, but before that, I struggled with that question. So I'm glad that you were able to really give language to that and clarity on the difference, the distinction between who you are and what you do.
Yeah, and it is what I will add to that is it is an ongoing journey. I'm still figuring it out. Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, is very real for me, right? It's this idea that you're never, ever, you're not ever there, right?
Yes.
This is where I am, and I'm evolving, I'm growing further into what God wants me to be. So it's an ongoing journey. And I think sometimes people interpret it as, this is it, this is what but it evolves and it morphs and it changes. It doesn't, I would say it evolves, not necessarily changes, because the seed of purpose was in you. It'll just evolve over time as you become it more. But I hope to have that conversation with young people all over the world, all over the country, to be able to have them have that conversation earlier in life. So another part of my work is helping young people really understand at an earlier age and have them feel comfortable with saying, who I am is enough. Who God created me to be is exactly who I'm going to be. And now I'm going to make decisions that are rooted in that. I want them to be talking about that sooner than where I started talking about it, which was probably later in my 40s, right? When I had my midlife crisis.
No, absolutely. And I love that, to have these conversations sooner. So I work as my profession for the last 24 years, actually, in higher education as an administrator. And I'm in student life under this division of student affairs. And one of the roles that I have is leadership development for our young club and organization leaders, honor society leaders, things like that. And I love that work because of exactly what you said, having them to learn who they are and what they stand for and what greater compelling future that they want to create or contribute to this world, their gifts, right? And I get so passionate about this work, but I'm kind of limited, right? Because I'm under the auspices of someone else's, right? And so creating this Warriors Thriving movement for me is my way to express the gifts, right? The seed that God has placed inside of me, and having me grow and walk in alignment with purpose. My life is more meaningful now because, I'm expressed fully by doing the work that I'm doing. I'm getting to work with wonderful women like yourself. And it's just amazing. Like all of the women that I ever probably would have wanted to ever be around, God is attracting them to me. Like you said, he's attracting the right people, the women of influence, women of God, women of purpose. And it's like, wow, because as you know, as sisters normally, and I don't mean race, I just mean women, gender, right? We claw at each other. We bring each other down. We, we don't lift each other up. And as I heard today, straighten each other's crowns, right? We're too busy trying to, we fight against one
Right.
another, right?
Well, and sometimes I wonder, so I happen to be a Spelman alum, and I went to school with, hundreds and thousands of, women, and have met many over the years. I think the world makes us think that women are catty and, that kind of thing. And so then we play into that image. I actually don't have that experience. And that doesn't mean that I haven't seen it, right? I absolutely have.
Well,
but I think that you become, when you have not treated people like that, right? And then you choose people to be around you that actually don't do that. And so I know
that's the difference.
Right. And that is the difference.
That's the difference.
So again, it all goes back, and this is why the work that you're doing, even in higher ed, is so important. It all goes back to helping people understand, well, who are you and how do you want to show up in the world?
That's right.
Because whoever that is, you can gravitate and draw people like that to you if you know who that is. Because when someone comes in your circle and they're not like that, they're going to stand out. You're going to be like, oh, no, sis. No, we don't do that. That's not how we do things. That's not for me. And you can make different choices. So I think it's just, again, it's so important to be able to understand it. I love that you're doing it and talking about it, because I think people can also lose that sense of self when they've been through trauma.
Yes.
You've been through something, you learn, you're unlearning some things about yourself that are so important.
Oh my
so
God.
The work that you're doing with domestic violence, thrivers, and, is so critical, because they're at a point where they're trying to figure out, like, who am I now? Now that I'm out of that relationship, now I'm in a different place. Now I've relocated, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Who am I? And what I want them to know is you get to choose.
Yes.
That is your choice, right? And so as you choose wisely.
Ooh, I love it. Love it. So that's a great segue into, the last final questions that I have about my movement, right? And so again, thank you, sister, for being a part of this 1 million strong warrior women survivors thriving. And what that looks like on the other side is just women that's being empowered and inspired to live their purpose, right? That's what the program is really all about. Speaking up, right? Having the courage to speak up, speak their truth, and then walking in alignment with their true purpose and walking into full power and what that looks like. So share your thoughts with us. Like, why do you think we need to create such a a movement, a warriors thriving global movement?
Yeah, I think it's critical for people to understand that you are not alone in your trauma. You are not alone in your experience. It is why I was able to say, like, somebody else has been through this, I can make it through this. So the larger that movement gets, again, you normalize the idea of transformation. You normalize the idea of purpose. You make that the norm and not the exception to the rule when you create a movement, right? And enough people get in it and you're like, no, this is what we're supposed to do. And this over here, we don't want to be a part of that, right? And so I think that the movement is, it creates a language, a lexicon. It creates, it is empowering. It's something people want to be a part of. And I just think normalizing that in number, with people who are saying there's a different way, I think is so important. And again, because you and I both share the love for young people, we're modeling for them what it is that they need to see so that they can change the trajectory of their lives and their children's lives and their children's lives, right? So I think that legacy and that shift is absolutely critical, so we can create some new habits and some normalization of transformation and being.
I love that. Wow. Powerful, 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 sister. So as we close out, I want to give you an opportunity to let folks know how they can reach you. And also, so you're going to share some information.
I am. And as I'm doing that, I just have to say thank you. Like anytime somebody gives you an opportunity to inspire, to share, to be heard, that's what you're doing in this podcast. So I just really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to share. And so as I'm doing that, as I'm putting up this screen, like if there is anyone out here who, you know, sees themselves saying, hey, I really would like more information about, you know, maybe what I'm doing. I'd like to have a conversation about what is purpose in my life. I like to give, my time is the one gift that I can give, Alaysha. I can give, you know, at my discretion.
Yes.
I can't get it back. So it is truly a gift when I give it, right? So I encourage anyone who's interested and wants to have a conversation. I do free purpose clarity calls with folks. You can either text the number here on the screen, 872-278-6527, and we'll set up a purpose clarity call, or you can go to my website, which is purposefulseed.net. And as we are getting ready for 2023, I am calling it, you know, be purposeful and free in 2023, right? And so I want people to really think bigger than you've ever thought before. And so I'll be doing some work around vision at the beginning of the year, but don't wait till January, start now. And so I know you're going to send out a link to have people download this free gift. It's a vision planner. It gives you an opportunity to really start writing out some of the things and the plans that you have. Write down the vision and make it plain. And by doing so, don't wait till January. You can start now. Go to the website that's here, and I'd be happy to send that to you for free. It certainly has helped me to start to write down the vision that I have, and then watch God make that happen as I am true to who I am. So thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Yes, absolutely. And sisters, since we are so much in alignment with one another, one of the things that, you know, again, no coincidences here. And 2023 is going to just be a phenomenal year with our Warriors Thriving Global Movement and the things that we're doing. You know, we're building this idea of 1 million strong.
I love it. I love it.
Women around the world, so that we can use our collective power and voices to create a future without violence for women and girls around the world. So some of the things that's going to come up for 2023 is really going into this idea of an elite mastermind so I'm offering this to those who have come on my talk show, that we can come together in this elite mastermind to plan like a summit for 2023, for next October, right? And it'll be perfect because, again, we share the same month.
Right, that's right. You know, right, we'll be wearing a purple one on this side and a pink ribbon on the other.
Right, and our sisters need that, and it's such a powerful connection here that we have and what God has given us. And like you said, even though our experiences are different, the journey, right, is very much in alignment with one another. And I'm sure so many other women that's, you know, going to watch this, they're going to be able to see themselves in either story. So again, my sister, I would love to have you in partnership with something like that. And
you don't even have to ask. I am there, and I know there are going to be other things God's going to lead us to be doing and walking. You find people aligned like that. You stay close to them, right? Because that means that you were meant to build something and build it out. So I'm honored to be invited to do so, and I would love to work with you on that.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate you so much. And God is just, you know, He gives us these visions, and we have, and when you said this earlier about things being in your head, you have to get out of your own way, right?
Right.
You don't have to let this recession and all the things that's happening in the world take you out. Create your own economy, create your own future, right? And that's what we're doing as entrepreneurs, as social entrepreneurs, right? Because we're doing something that is making an impact, making a difference in people's lives, and also making income, right? You need to be able to.
Those are not mutually exclusive. You can do good and make money. And absolutely integrity and right, you know, like it is possible. So
and that's what we're doing.
That's right. That's right.
So we are building. We welcome you, sisters, to join. Again, every week we're doing the podcast live, the Warrior Women Thriving Live. If you would like to come on, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions with our featured guests. We will be putting Erica's links in the description when we post this on YouTube. Episode 13 will be next Wednesday, 8 p.m. So join us. And then if you haven't already joined the tribe, join us at www.warriorwomenthrivingtribe.com. That's www.warriorwomenthrivingtribe.com. And that will also be a link there. So thank you, sister, for joining me.
What an honor.
It was
God
such a
bless
pleasure
you.
and honor to have you share your truth. And, you know, I praise God for, again, your journey, your transformation, and so many lives that you're going to save with not just your story, but then also the work that you're doing as a purposeful coach. So
thank you. I so appreciate we'll be doing that together. I'm really encouraging people to support you and what you're doing. It's important work. Somebody needs to join that mastermind so that they can, you know, get free and change their beliefs. So
that's right, because we're going to have the meeting of the minds, and these women are powerful. God has just really blessed me to be able to place some really powerful women in my path here, and I couldn't have asked for anything better. I mean, it's just amazes me. This is what I've always wanted. And when, like you said, when you put it out there, God is faithful. God is going to bless the desires of your heart, and it's authentic. Like, I truly want to impact and make a difference, and it's a calling, and this thing is birthed. It's here now, right?
Right. It's always bigger than us. I like one of my best friends, and I say we are angels on assignment. And I'm not going to miss the assignment. I promise. I do not want to fail the assignment, because somebody is depending on us to be able to follow through so that they can fulfill theirs. And so that's a lot of responsibility, but it's also an honor.
But it's a part of serving, sister. And when you take yourself out of it, right? Because that's kind of selfish.
Right.
It becomes selfless, because what you have, like you said, somebody needs us. And when you look at it like that, you have something to give, to gift to the world, right? And when you think of it like that, it's become service.
Yes.
And it's a must, because somebody's life could be depending on your gift.
No question. And I want to encourage women to also start with serving self, right? Like that. I think this whole conversation reminds us that when we don't serve self, we can't give. I've heard it say, you know, pour from not an empty cup, but from that, you know, pour from the overflow. Right? So fill up, overflow.
I say that all the time.
That means I got to be full first. And that is a challenge, particularly for women, because we love to give. We get a lot out of giving, but we still have to pour in. So let's start with the self-focus on loving self. And then we're positioned to be able to do all that we need to do. So thank you so much. God bless you in your ministry and your business.
Thank you.
I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thank you, sister. I so appreciate you, and looking forward to 2023.
2023. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Have a good night. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.